What's going on, guys? Your boy Fluff here. Today, as promised, we're going to bring you a guide on the Poison Scythe build. This is a new push setup that's only on PTR, but we personally did a GR100 first try with this setup, and we think it can go a lot higher. So, without further ado, let's get into the Poison Scythe Necromancer. Now, of course, guys, this is PTR, so everything we show you is subject to change, and we will keep the build guide as up to date as possible, and we might even redo the video if they've changed enough things. Now, I actually did a GR105 with this setup. I was about 85% in the rift, and I was a good 2 minutes ahead probably on the timer, and then PTR decided to crash on me. So unfortunately, I don't have that gameplay for you guys, but we think this could go a lot higher. If you actually take a look at the leaderboards, Wheathin has cleared a 104 with this. He does use a different skill setup than we do, but it's also very good. And you have a lot of freedom in the setup to run basically whatever poison abilities you think that are going to be best. Let's get into the skills. Now, this build revolves around Grim Scythe skill with the Cursed Scythe rune. Now, how are we juicing up? So, Cursed Scythe on its own does 150% weapon damage as poison to all targets in front of you. We're also using the Anaria set, which we get a flat 2750% damage modifier. Period. Not on skills or anything like that, just a flat 2750 damage bonus. Awesome. Another way we're juicing this up is with Ledger's Disdain. This is new on PTR, guys. This says Grim Scythe deals an additional up to 80% damage for each point of essence it restores. That means, guys, if you have no essence and you're swiping away with Grim Scythe, you're going to deal a ton of damage with Grim Scythe. We're also using trag'ouls Corroded Fang, which has great synergy with Grim Scythe. It makes Grim Scythe have a 100% chance to apply the curse. So you're basically going to get the base effect of all three curses almost all the time. Plus, you deal up to 200% damage to cursed enemies. Great weapon in this setup. The other ways we're juicing this up is in the cube. We're running the new Nair's Black Death, which says each different poison skill you use increases the damage of your poison skills by 100% for 15 seconds. And guys, we're using 1, 2, 3, 4 poison abilities, so we're going to get a 400% damage multiplier. We're of course also using Depth Diggers in the cube, which says your primary skills that generate resource deal 100% additional damage. So boom, another 100% damage modifier. Depth Diggers are great in this setup. And of course, Crispin Sends. It wouldn't even be a necro build if we weren't using Crispin Sends. It's that level of goodness. You deal 100% increased damage against slowed enemies, or triple that bonus against enemies afflicted by any other type of control impairing effect. Now, we are going to use Bone Armor with Dislocation, so we're going to get this triple bonus on demand. We're also using COE, or Convention of Elements, which says you gain up to 200% increased damage to a single element for 4 seconds. And this will cycle through the elements that you can do. And as you guys know, on the Necro, that's only 3 elements. So this has really, really good uptime. COEs are really, really good on the Necro. And of course, you can see we are using Simplicity Strength, which actually says increase the damage of your primary skills by X amount, depending on the gem level. Ours is only level 97. But it gives us 73.5% another damage multiplier. And also, hitting with a primary skill heals you for 4% of your max health, which is really, really good. And of course, along with that, we're using Bane of the Trapped, another way to juice it up. Tons of damage from Bane of the Trapped, it's so good. Plus, it procs the Crispin Sentence, guys. And lastly, we are using Bane of the Stricken. One, because it gives you 25% increased damage against the Guardians, which they do take a while in this setup. You're very good at clearing trash, but you know, the single target is a bit lacking. And so anytime we hit with that Grim Scythe, we're stacking this like crazy. So that's how we're juicing up Grim Scythe. And again, guys, we are using Nair's Black Death in the cube, which again says each different poison skill you use increases the damage of your poison skills by 100% for 15 seconds. One, we're using Bone Armor Dislocation. No brainer here. We get more toughness from Bone Armor, and we get an on-demand proc for Crispin Sentence. This is a must. Now, the other ways we're proccing Nair's Black Death, I mean, they are negotiable. You basically just want to get at least 4 skills on your bar that are going to be dealing poison damage. Now, we've kind of landed on these because we feel like it's the easiest 4 poison skills to like keep going. We've tried a lot of different variants of poison skills, and sometimes it could feel a bit clunky to try to keep all 4 up, but these 4 feel pretty smooth. But anyways, we're using Death Nova with Blight, mostly because it is a poison skill, obviously. But that little secondary effect, leave a lingering blight on the ground, blowing enemies by 60% and causing them to deal 15% less damage for 1 second. Now this skill is kind of nice because maybe as you're getting a big juicy pack together, you can kind of just spam this around the edges of the mobs. Maybe this helps you not get one shot a couple times. But really, really easy to keep going once you're swiping with your Grim Scythe. And the last skill we're using is actually Command Skeletons with Kill Command. And this might seem like a really weird choice to you guys, but I would encourage you guys to try it. Why have I landed on this? The reason number one is we can actually cast the Command Skeletons while we're moving. That's reason number one. That's actually really, really beneficial to us. Two is as we're attacking with Grim Scythe, we can also command the skeleton. So we don't have to stop scything to cast a skill, which is basically invaluable. Now, reason number three is we can actually numlock this skill, which you guys might not think is a great thing, but it actually is really, really nice. Now, why would we want to numlock command skeletons? There's a few reasons. One is because we are using standalone, which says increase armor by 100%, reduced by 10% for each active minion. So having skeletons up is actually a bad thing, so you want to get rid of them as fast as you possibly can. Another reason this is great is because of how Ledger's Disdain works. Basically, we only get that damage bonus from Grim Scythe if we're at low essence. We want to keep this essence pool as low as we possibly can. So a spender going off as often as we can manage it is fantastic, especially since we don't have to, again, we don't have to stop scything to cast command skeletons. That's amazing. Now, other skill choices here, we are using Blood Rush with potency. It does give us a nice juicy toughness boost. And then lastly, the other thing that might not make sense right out of the gate is Skeletal Mage with Singularity. Why on earth would we use this in A, the Inarius set, and B, in a non-pet build? I'm obviously not running anything that increases the damage of our pets. This would seem like a really bad choice. Now, as you guys will see in the gameplay above, we literally just use Skeletal Mage to dump all of our essence. Do get essence pretty crazy fast, especially if there's like a screen full of mobs. You want to get rid of that essence as fast as possible, again, because that's the only way we can get that damage bonus from Ledger's Disdain, is to have low essence so that this can do its full damage by regaining essence. You can't get the damage bonus from Ledger's Disdain unless there's essence to restore. So that's why we're just dumping all our essence as fast as we can gain it. Now, I know this is not a poison ability, and I know that Skeletal Mage with Singularity isn't going to be doing a ton of damage in the setup, but it's literally the only thing we can do to dump all of our essence. And it's something we have to do. And I've tried countless poison abilities, you know, like Contamination from Skeletal Mage. We tried all the poison runes on Bone Spear, Death Nova. We've tried every poison ability you can possibly imagine. And there is absolutely no way that you can keep your essence low enough on this build without using a Skeletal Mage with Singularity. Using this build, you actually just get too much essence per Grim Scythe swipe. And Skeletal Mage with Singularity is literally the only way you can get rid of it all. Trying other abilities, you just can't keep up with trying to keep your essence as low as possible. So that is the only reason we're using Skeletal Mage with Singularity. Hopefully in the future we'll see, you know, maybe something like Contamination, getting rid of all of our essence, or like a Death Nova rune would be ideal, or even a Bone Spear rune. But as it stands right now, this is the only option to get rid of all of our essence, and so that's why it's on our bar. Now, we've covered how we're dealing crazy amounts of damage with Grim Scythe. Let's talk about toughness. One way we're getting toughness is through the Inarius 4-piece, which says Bone Armor grants an additional 2% damage reduction per enemy hit. And of course, guys, we are using Bone Armor Dislocation. We're going to get this 4-piece damage reduction basically all the time, which is amazing. We're also using Dainty's Binding, which says you get up to additional 50% damage reduction while an enemy is afflicted by one of your curses. And of course, guys, we're using Grim Scythe with trag'ouls Corroded Fang, so every time you swipe with your Scythe, an enemy is going to get afflicted by a curse. Dainty's Binding is up basically all the time. But quick note, guys, when you first enter the rift and there's nothing afflicted by any of your curses, you might be a little squishy, so try to get in there safely. Either stun them with Dislocation, or just get in there and swipe as fast as possible to get that full damage reduction. Another way we're juicing up our damage is using Unity on the follower and wearing the Unity with, of course, the relic that says your follower cannot die. That's the only way you can get this toughness boost using Unity, guys. And then, of course, we're using Wisdom of Kalan. This one is terrible, but again, as you guys will see in my PTR video, you know, Wisdom of Kalan has a base roll of attack speed, which is particularly bad for this setup. So this build is pretty darn tanky. You basically have 4 layers of mitigation, which is a lot higher than most builds get. You'll still find that you're quite squishy against, you know, mob types that are just really good at killing the necro, like succubus, spear throwers. If you stand in any kind of grotesque, you'll obviously get wrecked. And that's just necro in general, guys. Any build on the necro will get just wrecked by those mob types. For passives, we are using Swift Harvesting. It's a really, really good choice here because it increases the attack speed of Grim Scythe by 15%. Obviously, Grim Scythe is our main damage dealer here, so that's great. We're using Final Service because we don't care about our pets. Our pets dying is great, and they'll actually heal us. So Final Service is actually a really, really good choice here. And obviously, a DI to keep us going is very, very good. And of course, we're using Standalone. We get more toughness based on the amount of minions we do not have. So again, you don't want to have a high stack of skeletal warriors here. You're going to put that skill on numlock or just be casting it as often as you possibly can. You don't want to have more than, 3 out at a time because you're going to get some serious mitigation loss. And of course, you're also getting kind of some mitigation loss by casting the skeletal mages. They actually don't last very long at all. They'll only last 6 seconds in this setup, so you're barely ever going to get more than 2 out at a time. But at the most, you're taking a 20% hit on this 100% armor bonus. And lastly, for just raw damage boost, we're using Spreading Malediction. You receive a 1% damage bonus to each enemy inflicted by one of your curses. And again, the dream is to have this big, juicy pack together that you're just Grim Scything nonstop, so tons of enemies afflicted by your curses. This is a great setup choice. So we've covered skills, we've covered passives, we've covered legendary gems, we've covered gear and how you're juicing up Grim Scythe. But real quick, we're just going to touch on stat rolling. Now, attack speed is a really good choice in this setup because attack speed means, more attacks with Grim Scythe. And later on, that can translate to more stacks of Stricken. So attack speed is great in this build. I also really like area damage in this setup. Cooldown doesn't really benefit you a ton other than giving you faster blood rush cooldown. Just going over the gear real quick, guys. On the gloves, we have crit damage, crit chance, area damage. You could go area damage or attack speed here. But I can't say definitively which one's better because I do use D3 Planner to do most of my damage calculations. And this is still in the infancy, so a lot of this stuff could change. But that's how I like my gloves. Shoulders, invite, area damage, and cooldown reduction, I think are going to be the best choices here. Helmet, invite, crit chance with socket, and obviously we use a life gem instead of a cooldown reduction gem because we just don't need the cooldown reduction. On the chest, invite life is nice. On the belt, invite life and armor would be best. Obviously, the highest possible damage mitigation reduction you can get on the Dainty's binding. Pants, invite Grim Scythe damage. Again, pants can roll with primary skill damage, so Grim Scythe's a good choice here. Boots, invite armor and movement speed. On the weapon, we do like attack speed, a definite must for this setup. Damage roll is really good. Percent damage is really good. Maybe even area damage here over intelligence, just depending on what you can get. Offhand, damage roll, int, crit chance. Cooldown reduction is not good here, so we'd rather have something like either Grim Scythe damage or area damage. The bracer slot, we are using the Nemesis bracers. There's not a lot of good choices for the bracer slot for Necro. We can't really stun often enough to make Parthen Defenders really worth it here. But most of the time when you touch a pylon, you're getting a powerful effect. So being able to kill the elite with that powerful effect can be nice. Pylons like Power and Conduit are going to be really good in this setup. Channeling is not so good. But on the bracers, Poison, invite, crit chance. On the necklace, we would want a Wisdom of Kalan with attack speed, crit damage, crit chance, and a socket. On our COE, we want crit chance, crit damage, and a socket. And then that last stat, could either be attack speed or area damage. And of course, the highest damage roll we can get on that COE element. Unity, crit damage, crit chance, increased damage against elites, and of course, socket. Now, playstyle is pretty straightforward and simple. As I said earlier, when you first get into that rift, you're going to be slightly squishy because there's nothing afflicted by one of your curses. You can either, stun with bone armor and get in and Scythe someone real quick, and then start gaining density. But that's your ultimate goal. You want density in this setup. You want to make sure everything's get afflicted by your curses. Once enemies get afflicted by the base effect of your leech, you become much more tanky. Between leech and simplicity strength, you heal for quite a bit. And again, if you choose to numlock the command skeletons, I think it's wise. You don't have to worry about, basically proccing one of your poison abilities on Nair's Black Death. Of course, you're going to be Grim Scything nonstop, so you don't have to worry about that either. Just keep bone armor up. You basically have 3 stacks of Black Death. The only thing you really have to worry about is casting Death Nova Blight just every once in a while to get the effect of Black Death up. You don't even have to hit anything with it. You'll just get the effect. So just try to keep that in the back of your mind. Once every 15 seconds, just cast a Nova. That's basically the only thing you have to worry about. And you can see in the video, we don't have a ton of experience playing this build. We did get it at 100 first try, but just barely. And we didn't dump essence as often as we should have, and we, didn't play perfectly and stuff like that, but as you guys can see, we still cleared it. This build has a lot more potential, and I'll be playing this a lot more once this hits live. And that's basically going to do it for the build guide, guys. I don't think that this maybe we'll do as high as, maybe Bloodlance will, but farming for density and killing density is a lot more satisfying than just like farming for the perfect elite rift like you do in the Bloodlance build. That's pretty much going to do it. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. As always, guys, like, subscribe, come over to Twitch, ask your questions, support us on Patreon if you want. We love you guys. Peace out.